Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of the Chicago Techies podcast, a podcast focused on highlighting the voices of Chicago Techies and their experiences. This season, we'll be focusing on students looking to enter or entering the Chicago Tech community. I'm your host, Ceci F.B. Thank you for joining us. On today's episode, I am joined by Dillon Chappell, aspiring software developer and recent computer science grad from Northern Illinois University. Hi, Dillon. It's so nice to meet you. And thank you so much for responding to a stranger's note on LinkedIn. I'm really glad that you are here with me talking. I'm really excited for you to join this episode of the Chicago Techies podcast. I'm really excited to talk about your experience and your career trajectory and, this path as you transition to the tech community. So why don't we get started with the podcast? And can you tell me your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and maybe even your current role, if you have one?
Right. Well, thank you for having me here. I'm excited. My name is Dillon. Pronouns he, him. What else did you say?
Where you're from and your current role.
I'm from Antioch, Illinois. And my current role is as a parts delivery driver for Napa.
Awesome. Okay, so I know that this is definitely not what you want to be doing. You want to go into the Chicago.
How did you guess that now?
All right. I mean, we just met and I have magic powers. Okay, so let's start with your high school experience. I'm really curious about how that was. Where did you go to high school?
High school, I went to Antioch Community High School. My experience there was, I'd say, about average, shy high school student just trying to do their best because they think it's going to matter. And then, hey, in college, it really doesn't. Wow. I did find that I was very good at math and science, so I kind of leaned into that as I transitioned towards college. Aside from that, I feel like I was just barely a hair away from being like a theater kid, but that's a side plot.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, I love that. Actually, my brother-in-law was a theater kid throughout college and throughout high school, and now he's a software engineer. So there's definitely a lot of the ways that you can
There's
still
hope for me.
Yeah. So, your experience was average. I feel like mine was pretty average too. But so once you graduated high school, where you're getting to that your senior year, did you already kind of have an idea what you wanted to do? As far as like going to what school and choosing a major, like what was your process to getting to where you wanted to go?
Well, first of all, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was pretty much cast into the ocean of possibilities, told to, hey, make the decision for your whole life at 17. And I ended up going with mechanical engineering at first because I thought, hey, I love building stuff. I love science, so yeah, that'll be perfect. First 2 years in, I realized, wow, this is not for me. And at that point, I was floundering. And then I went to CLC, where I eventually got my associates, but that's future stuff. And I took a software development class in Visual Studio, and it turns out I loved it. Before that, I thought I would hate it because I was like, oh, it's just typing. No, I can't do that. But I like the idea of like building this puzzle where you can control how the pieces look, I guess. That's the way I like to describe it when someone asks me what I do. But
yeah. Thanks. So for the people that don't know, what is CLC?
CLC is College of Lake County, and it's a community college in Grays Lake, Illinois.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I actually went to a community college too before I transferred to NIU, which that's where you went to after, right?
I actually went to NIU and CLC kind of at the same time. I went to NIU because some of my dad's side of the family went there and they were alums. So I was like, oh, wow, that's a good that's a good choice. And then CLC was for like prerequisites like
Yeah.
English, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's super smart to honestly. I actually was talking this to my with my wife earlier today in the car when we're driving. We're like, you know what? Like when we have kids, I think we should definitely like make them lean toward community college first, and then make them have those decisions to go into a university or where they want to transfer, because it's just also so much like cheaper for
I wish I
parents.
would have like actually gone to community college before um, actually going to NIU and staying there because I feel like I would have gotten a better sense of what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, agreed. Now, as far as like your college experience at CLC or at NIU even, have you had any sort of involvement with any other groups that might have shaped your vision about what was right for you rather than just that class, or did you have any other kind of involvement with student groups?
when I first started out, they put me in a living learning community, and it was for like STEM fields. And as it turns out, the neighbors that I had on that living learning community floor were really good friends, and they kind of helped me to like get into stuff. They kind of supported me when I didn't know an answer to a question, or even just if like we wanted to hang out, I could be a nerd with them. You know,
And where was this living and learning community? Was it at NIU or was it at the other?
it was at NIU, Grant Towers. Shout
Uh,
out to anyone who lived in Grant Towers.
I was an RA at Grand Towers.
Yes,
A4. Yes, I
C12.
was an RA my senior year there, and I lived in Grant with my 50 freshman students back then. Um, but yeah, I didn't realize that Grant was now sort of like they had these kind of groups where it was like living and learning communities. I had no idea that was kind of how it was done now. It's kind of exciting actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so you have recently graduated from NIU, right? Like in the past couple of
Yes.
months. So congrats on that. That's awesome. It's a big accomplishment. I'm curious about any like resources that you might have used for transitioning out of NIU. Like, have you, I guess whether was that like student groups on campus or like meetups or events or anything that has kind of guided you as you transition out of college and looking into your first role? Or do you have any resources around that?
I don't have any resources for that, Cece. I'm so sorry. It's been
No, this
all
is great.
me
No, this is
trying to
great.
figure
Like,
it out as I go.
yeah,
It's
no, and absolutely. I feel like this is kind of like the reason why I wanted to create this podcast, because I feel like there are so many students out there that just like we're not properly advised in the things that they need to really be involved with and the things that they should be looking for. And internships. That's like another big thing that for the most part NIU does a decent job at telling us like when there are some like career fairs and whatnot, but it's also really intimidating to go to career fair alone and like not sure really what you want to do next. But I feel like as someone that is going to a STEM role, I feel like there should be a little more support from either campuses or from like student groups themselves, like to educate students about what's next. So I guess in this topic of internships, like did you apply for any internships, or how did you navigate like trying to figure out like how should I make money before before I go into my senior year, or at least like what should I do before I can get that first entry level position?
as it turns out, I didn't apply for any internships because, like I've heard on your podcast a couple times now, um, I was told to only do school and no work.
Mm-hmm.
Just school, just graduate. You'll get a job within the first 2 months. Then the first 2 months go by. 6 months.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the way that I mean, at least for my family, my family was the one that was very insisting of me not even worrying about work yet, because all your job is school and that's what you used to do. But
Like I get it comes from a place of love, like they want you to succeed, but I don't think they realize that that's not how that works. Like it's
Yeah, and it's you have to find out now on your own. And I'm assuming that this has been a challenge for you. I
No.
what So tell me about, like, how you at least got this role that you said Napa, right? That's where you're working with auto parts. So
Yes.
how did you come about that role, I guess, or just randomly apply, or how are you, because there might be an opportunity for you to maybe leverage that and ask if there are any entry level positions as a software engineer. But have you thought about doing something like that and talking to your manager about it, or how are you navigating at least that role and that experience before you go into a software engineering role?
I actually kind of leveraged that experience with a project that me and a group did in college. Like we were able to put together a database with MySQL queries, PHP, HTML, JavaScript, all that, and we put together like a auto parts database with like a login system, a parts query, and I feel like if I could like show someone that I could do that, then it would really help out with like if I could get somewhere with this company. But I feel like this is more of a means to an end right now, meaning like, oh, I need money right now. So I don't know. It's hard because like I want to like apply myself, but I also have to work at the job that I'm doing, which gives me no time to do anything else.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's been, I'm assuming, has been very challenging to try to transition out of this role and go into an engineering role. So I guess in that topic of challenges, like, what is really the most challenging thing? Are you having trouble kind of like reaching recruiters, or are you just not actively applying? Like, what is one of the things that you're noticing that is really like something that you should be doing that you're not maybe not doing yet, or something that is just not working out for you?
To like list off the things that I do, I like apply to at least 5 jobs a day. Like I give myself that goal. Usually it's like 10, but I give myself 5 just to be realistic. I check my email like every hour to make sure like, oh, are they getting back to me or not? Usually they don't get back to me at all, and when they do get back to me, it's, oh, we're moving forward with other applicants.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of like demoralizing, you know? And another theme that I noticed from your podcast is imposter syndrome, which I can relate to that certainly. Um, Something that I feel like I could do would be to like build a website with the things that I've made on my own, like my own digital portfolio, which I am trying to do that now in any free time that I get. So aside from that, I'm really not sure what more I could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm with you. It's soul sucking when you're not hearing back from recruiters, or when you just even, when they just say, sorry, we're moving forward with other candidates. I think, and that's really, it's really difficult when you don't have an internship experience, because sometimes they already are looking for that, for someone that already has some type of internship experience that can just like fit right in. But like, it's difficult because not everybody has that opportunity and not everybody has that experience. So I feel like there's a little gap there between recruiters and entry level roles. How really equitable are you? Like, because if you're going to only be hiring for people that have this background of an internship experience for 1 or 2 years, then you're leaving out a whole percentage more that didn't have this luxury to be able to go to an internship. And that might not be their faults. Something might have happened at home, something might have happened to them. Like there's just a wide variety of reasons why people don't go into internships and now have trouble finding their first like chance, essentially. Also, I noticed that you said you mentioned imposter syndrome from my previous conversations with other people in the podcast. And I would not lie, this is the first time I'm hearing white guy say this, like, and admit this, that they are, that they have this imposter syndrome, and they are, that this is obviously something of a challenge and a little bit of a, of a not necessarily a setback, but it's something that you often think about. So I appreciate you being super honest with me in this first conversation. I don't hear this often from a lot of white guys, to be honest.
I
It's just
mean,
something that they don't share much.
I think it's important to like let people know that no matter who you are, you can you can do it. It's just it sucks when you're constantly just being what's the word?
You're in
Cut this
denial.
out, Cece. um, it sucks when your applications are just being like thrown in the toss out pile and you're just getting ghosted by these companies. And it sucks when you see like fellow students who you just see like coding away, not even looking at the screen in your class when you're like, I can barely like write a MySQL query. Like it's hard, but you know, you're not alone.
Yeah. So have you what have you done as far as like personal projects to kind of like, keep yourself busy and kind of keep yourself like, I guess in some ways like prepare your resume and stuff for these opportunities?
Well, I like building like mini games. Like I've built the breakout game where like you have a paddle and a ball and then like bricks at the top. You just bounce it up and down. I built Snake. Uh, I've I remember I should have paid more attention in the data structures and algorithms class because that's really useful as it turns out. So I've been going over that and like making maze generators using a backtracking algorithm. My next goal is to make something that solves that maze that was just generated. Um, so it's stuff like that that I do to keep myself busy and like really reinforce the things that I've learned and maybe learn something new.
Yeah. So I like that you're into games, building games and stuff. I don't I mean I myself have never really tried to code anything. I think I tried maybe like Ruby at one point to try to like
You
build
start with
an
Ruby,
app. Yeah, I was trying to build Ruby.
bruh.
But what actually on that note of languages, coding languages, what are you familiar with? What languages have you been practicing with? What are you doing?
Um, I've kind of made it a point to try and know all of them at least a little bit because I feel like once you learn one really well, all the other ones kind of come to you like much easier. So at NAU they started me with C++. Um, then I moved on to Java, and then Python, PHP, HTML. My favorites are probably Python, JavaScript, and Java. Java and C++ are like tied. So
Yeah, I mean, there are actually, I know you just laughed, but there are actually a lot of Ruby shops in Chicago, a lot of companies that are coding in Ruby. So that's always something to look at. And also, believe it or not, Golang is taking up also a lot.
I
A lot
heard
of
about that too.
companies are doing it. I used to work at a company called Innova, and I was doing learning and development sort of for software engineering, and we had this internal they had this internal like coding bootcamp essentially before you went into a production team. So you actually would be paid, for the first 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes 8 depending on your level, but you would actually be there full time just doing these exercises that had nothing to do with the company. They were just like Ruby. So you would be basically teaching yourself Ruby before you actually move to the production team. There are actually a few companies that do that in Chicago, that they will, onboard you to learn their language before you actually touch any production code and any code. And obviously there's also a lot of legacy code, which is, I hear, very,
Oh,
very
ugh.
intimidating. But so I'm actually on that topic of like, startups and organizations and whatnot in Chicago. You're in the suburbs. You live there mainly, right?
Yeah,
Have you had any interest in potentially moving either away or even just to the city to work there at a startup, or what are your plans? Where are you applying? Just curious.
I'd actually really much rather live in the middle of the cornfield, just in a box, you know, coding on like a piece of corn or something. Seriously though, I would love to go to the city. I
Right.
think the city is beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, I'd never really got to go there much aside from like a field trip here and there or like a trip to the art museum with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd love to move there, like even get involved in the community somehow, because that's also something I never really got to do that I've always been really interested in.
Yeah, and honestly, I actually wanted to share a couple of resources with you because I think you would benefit from them if you don't know them already. But there, so I'm assuming you know about Slack, right? Slack has a lot of different workspaces for a lot of a lot of companies use it, but also there's also a lot of community groups that use it, and one of them is Chicago, the Chicago tech community. Like Chicago Tech is, they have a Slack, they have a lot of channels about job searching, and you can introduce yourself. There's people that talk about fitness and events and diversity and remote work and software architecture. So there's obviously there's a lot of strangers in community there that I think would be a resource for you, that you might be able to make connections and maybe find even a role. So I will definitely send you an invite to that Chicago Tech Slack. There's others, other workspaces like the Code for Chicago. I'm definitely selling Code for Chicago in every call or every podcast that I do with a lot of the students, because technically, like, this is a really great way to get some experience. So Code for Chicago is a brigade, a chapter of Code for America, where I used to work, actually. So Code for Chicago, it basically is a nonprofit, and essentially, they're sponsored by Code for America, but is a group of just coders, a group of not just coders, but also like designers and product and project managers, and just people that want to help. So they have two leaders, or I believe two, or more than two. There's like five leaders, Ryan and a bunch of others that are leading essentially the group, and they take on pro bono work from nonprofits and from other or any other organization, or maybe sometimes even the city of Chicago themselves, to do some cool projects. Like, for instance, right now we have one with the Chicago Food Depository, to just build them this like mapping project that they're going to use for their website. We also did, they did, I haven't really done much. I've just been helping with their social media, but others have done there's sort of other cool projects. Like we did a project with the, there's a Chicago group that focused on educating people on cannabis, and that, so that we help them build their website, and they're essentially a nonprofit now. So they do a lot of really cool projects and help code away, or even just design things for nonprofits and whatnot. And anyone can join. So you could start building like your GitHub or any other projects and showcase what you do with this group. And that is essentially an internship experience. Essentially, it's not necessarily a fully paid internship experience because it's pro bono, but at least you're getting a lot of context and you're getting a lot of practice and all this stuff. So I would recommend taking a look. They actually are meeting right now. Every Thursday at 7 they meet, and I'm actually hoping to join the next one, but we meet and they do an onboarding session for new volunteers, for anyone that wants to join, every Thursday as well. So I would also send you a link to that meetup, because you don't have to be in Chicago to attend right now, since everything is virtual. So you can start kind of like getting familiar with the Chicago tech community and where everybody works and some of the companies. I think that would be very helpful for you if you're interested in it at all whatsoever in that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I wish I could be in two places at once, because that sounds like a really good time.
I know. I'm sorry. I could. Today is the only day.
How dare you take up my time?
Today is the only day that worked for me this week, and I kind of had a you know the whole story, but
I gotcha.
But yeah, I'll invite you to, and I'll share links to all of those, because I think that you should be able to have this experience. You should be able to see what's out there and like be aware of like how the Chicago tech community is operating and stuff. There's also Meetup. Meetup.com is a good place to find groups that are like-minded. I mean, I remember when I first started in the tech community, I decided to go to all the tech meetups I could find. And I was usually the only girl or the only person of color there. It was a little intimidating, but I learned so much. Like so the JavaScript guys, had a one-on-one, like a class, a Java 101 class. So I went to that and learned about it. There were others that had like Python 101, Ruby 101, and all of that. So I enjoyed at least kind of networking with a lot of different people at those meetups. So you said you're not really much in Chicago, but at least like right now, some of them are virtual. So you could potentially attend some of those meetups if they are meeting right now. So I'll send you a bunch of links that might be of interest to you.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. So now obviously like we're getting toward the goals section of this podcast. So I'm curious about, obviously other than getting a job as an entry-level software engineer, what are some of the goals? Or do you have any, are you open to any other positions like QA engineering or anything else that you like to know? Curious to learn more about your goals.
I do have some goals. I mentioned earlier that I have been trying to make games. Video games have been like part of my life, my whole life. Started with a PS2 playing Spider-Man. It was awesome. And I quickly got into Halo, and Bungie became my favorite game development company. And I love what they do. They do a lot of community outreach. They have actually helped raise money for fundraisers that go towards like Black Lives Matter and pride organizations, and they make one of my favorite games now, Destiny, and working for them would be an absolute dream come true. Obviously, that's a big goal. My low tier goal right now is to get into a company that focuses on green energy, because my minor is in environmental science. I think it's really important. So I would love to get involved with something that actually helps with the environment.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'm not really sure. I'm not or super familiar with any companies or startups in Chicago that are kind of doing this kind of work, but I will be on the lookout because that's pretty special. I think that's says a lot about a person. So I appreciate you sharing that. I actually did want to ask one more thing that I completely forgot to ask earlier, but I noticed in your in your LinkedIn that you have gone through a lot of hurdles in your life, and one of them is dealing with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
And obviously like insurance costs, I'm assuming that it's not cheap. It's a problem. Healthcare is a problem in this country, but
Yeah.
can you speak more about that experience for you and how that has kind of affected you as as a student, as a young person really that is just trying to make it in this world?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed when I was like 5. So obviously like a lot to throw at someone at that age, but at the same time it didn't really register. So for me it just kind of became the normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
It started becoming more of a problem socially, I guess. Not really for like good friends, but like, the people that you really don't want to have in your life. They started like pointing out, "Oh, your fingers, they have like weird marks on them." Or like, "Oh, what are you doing with that, weirdo?" Um, Even a teacher one time was like, "Don't play games in class." Um, when I was like checking my blood glucose. Um, so obviously a little bit of a bullying target, but I didn't let that bother me too much because I don't think those kind of opinions even warrant any space in your brain. Um, Obviously the medical costs can be a lot. Um, if I didn't have my family supporting me with their insurance, I would probably have to be rationing insulin like a lot of diabetics have to do in this country. Um, Sorry. It's something that gets me, the
Yeah,
idea of
no,
that.
thank you. I appreciate you sharing this. I know it can be hard. I have well, I had, because he passed, but I had an uncle that was dealing with the same. And also then he was also dealing with something else with other diseases, but he passed earlier this year or last year, late last year, like in November, I believe.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but he lived a pretty long life, and I got to say goodbye. I was able to go see him in Mexico, because he actually lives in California, but it just so happens that he was traveling. He went to Mexico over the summer or fall, and that's when he really started getting sick. But he was supposed to be there for a month on vacation, and his health just took a turn, and he was not able to get out of it. Like, it just, they called my mom and they said, you need to get here, like, because we don't think it's going to be far, like it may be a couple of weeks, but that just really shook the entire family. Like, he was supposed to be out on vacation and he was doing okay, but it just kind of came out of nowhere that the other things he had Parkinson's as well. So that was another one that was really spreading. And yeah, so I definitely, there's a lot of challenges for people with diabetes and any really other diseases, because healthcare here is not something, but that's for another day. That's another big topic. We're talking about tech here. But I really appreciate you opening up and sharing that with me. I mean,
in my opinion, it's not been all bad. I've kind of taken it as like a path to be more responsible with my life. Like, I'm able to watch my health much better because it was just the norm for me when I was younger. I'm able to really find good people because I've kind of gotten a scent for that, after dealing with so many of the bad ones. But yeah, I try to not see all the negatives and try to make some positive out of it.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's really the best way to look at life in general, right? Okay, well, this has been a pleasure, and I really, really appreciate
I loved this.
I love this too. I mean, we just met and now we're going to be best friends.
Obviously.
Yes.
Hey.
So I would love for people to connect with you. For anyone that is interested in learning about your experience, or even just talking more or connecting, where can people find you? Do you have LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, email, whatever you want to share? Do you have any of those?
All the above.
Awesome. All right. Well, how about
LinkedIn.
you send me all of those and I put them in the show notes so that people can definitely connect with you, because why not? You're a super cool dude, and I would love to be your friend. And if you're ever
I'm also very humble, obviously. Yeah. so humble.
Well, if you're ever in Chicago for whatever reason, let me know, and I'll be happy to chat and have some coffee and maybe take you to 1871. I don't know if you've ever heard of 1871, but 1871 is one of the biggest tech hubs in Chicago. There is like almost 500 developing companies inside of it. Startups.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, so wait, we need to talk about 1871 then. I think there's a lot of things in Chicago that I think would be amazing for you. So 1871 is one of my favorite places in Chicago to go work or just hang out, because they also have a lot of events, and it's huge. It's basically at the Merchandise Mart in Chicago, which is this big ass building, excuse my language, this big building that has a lot of companies inside, and even companies that are already pretty big that are just renting space there, because it's essentially like this amazing ecosystem of tech in Chicago. So definitely look up 1871 Chicago, the building, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. But I think we can go and have coffee there when you're here in Chicago, and we'll try to get you that job. So for anyone listening, if you're hiring any entry level roles for software engineering,
hey, if anyone's got some of the jobs, like,
hit us up.
I'm here.
Yeah, I honestly, seriously, send me your resume. I will send it to some of my friends and see what we can do. But let's try to get you to Chicago. I think you really need to come to Chicago and really see.
I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, this is where you belong. You belong in Chicago. So let's work on getting you that role and go from there. But yes, let's do coffee soon. Okay.
Coffee.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks again.
I loved being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Chicago Techies podcast. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review on iTunes. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us at Chicago Techies on all social media channels. Thank you again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.